want to start this off by making it clear that everything said in this video comes from a place of love. Every grievance, doubt, or complaint I'm about to express comes from my love of not only Final Fantasy VII, but the overall Final Fantasy series as a whole, and my want for the Final Fantasy VII Remake to be as good as it can possibly be. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk a bit about my history with Final Fantasy VII and what it means to me. Growing up as a gamer in the 90s and 2000s, even if you didn't play Final Fantasy VII yourself, you knew about it. You knew about Cloud, Sephiroth, you knew about Aerith and her fate. The game was that level of notorious, and I didn't play it myself until 2006, as I was marathoning every Final Fantasy game in order. And you know what? At the time, I thought the game was just good. Not phenomenal like 6 or great like 4, just good. And that's okay, because it was still a good game on its own. But this was back in 2006, when I was 14 years old. As an adult now who has replayed the game, I can appreciate 7 more for its themes, for what it did for the genre and gaming as a whole. Unlike the previous 6 entries or most other RPGs of the past, Final Fantasy VII doesn't start you with some blurb about ancient evils or prophecies. After giving you a panoramic view of Midgar, it immediately hits the ground running, giving you control of a group of eco-terrorists on a bombing mission to stick it to the man and doesn't slow down for a while. While 7 doesn't crack my upper tier of games in the series, I can see why so many others hold it in such high regard, and I respect it and everything it's set out to do. Now, let's skip ahead to 2015, where after years of fan demand, the remake of Final Fantasy VII was officially revealed at E3 and stole the entire show. Even I, someone that places 7 lower on my totem pole of Final Fantasy games, was beside myself with excitement. To see this now classic game reimagined with today's technology blew me away. Seeing Midgar come to life with the timeless soundtrack of the game playing in the background was enough to excite anyone with even the slightest familiarity with Final Fantasy VII. This was going to be a dream come true game. And then we started getting more details about the project. First was the revelation that they were drastically altering the battle system. Gone was the iconic ATB system started by Final Fantasy IV that the series had used all the way up till 9. The Final Fantasy VII Remake would instead use real-time action. As we found out recently, you'll be able to slow down combat to issue commands if you so desire. Now, personally, if I had to choose between a turn-based battle system and a real-time action-based one, I would choose turn-based pretty much every time. Not only do I personally find it more fun in general, I can count on one hand the amount of JRPG series I've seen nail real-time combat and make it enjoyable for me. Not to mention the track record of Final Fantasy games using action-based combat has ranged from decent to terrible. So, I think you'll forgive my skepticism somewhat. For me, this is the perfect example of trying to fix something that isn't broken. You can easily update the battle system of 7 without changing one of the key features that made so many like it in the first place. And one defense I've seen a lot of for this change is the belief that if you want the same game, then just play the original. And to that I will say, this as clearly as possible, that's BS. There's 2 main reasons I've seen people make this asinine statement. The first being that some view real time as a natural evolution of turn-based combat, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. Games like Persona 5, Octopath Traveler, and Dragon Quest XI show that not only is turn-based not dead, it can work just as well and be just as fun as a real-time battle system in the modern age. And the other reason I've seen for this statement is that some gamers, for whatever reason, have a prejudice against turn-based combat and have been using this excuse as a way to tell people to get over the fact that the remake of 7 is going real time. Most of these complaints I've noticed have come from people that have never even played the original game, and I'm willing to bet if a developer were to take some of these individuals' favorite games, like say Devil May Cry or God of War, and change the combat completely for a remake, these same people would be singing a very different tune. But that's enough of that mini rant, let's move on. There's really 3 key issues I have with the remake of 7 so far, and the change in battle system is just the first. My second issue is the one that had most of us scratching our heads, and that's the decision to split the game into multiple parts, each of the length of a full game on their own. Oh boy, where do I begin with this? Okay. So, the reason they're supposedly doing this is to not have to cut any content out of the game and to flesh out the world of 7, Midgar in particular, as much as possible. Some have called this an excuse to simply milk the game and get more money out of gamers, but I'm not going to argue for or against that since I truly have no way of knowing yet. The issue I have with splitting the game into multiple parts is that it introduces a multitude of undeniable problems, the one at the forefront of my mind being the pacing. Final Fantasy VII is a 30 to 40 hour game, and in my opinion the amount of time you spend in each area already works well enough. You spend enough time to really take in an area, witness some events there, and you move on. As I stated before, the remake is aiming to make every individual release the length of a full game, part 1 being solely Midgar. Now, I don't know about you, but this raises all types of alarms for me. Getting through Midgar in the original game would likely take you anywhere from 5 to 8 hours most likely, depending on your personal pace. Now, let's be generous here and say the length of Midgar in the remake will only be around 20 hours or so. That's more or less tripling the amount of time you spend in Midgar compared to the original. Like I said, that's assuming it's only going to be about 20 hours. We don't know exactly how long they mean when they say each part will be the length of a full game, so for all we know it could be even longer. But my point is that taking a short section like this and extending it to hell and back is not only unnecessary, but will mess up the flow of the game. I like Midgar a lot, both as a setting and the section of the game itself. It gives you all you need to know about what Avalanche is fighting for, how corrupted the Shinra Corporation is, and it lays some fundamental seeds for the rest of the journey. You get what you need from Midgar, and then you get out and explore the rest of the world. Yes, there are parts of Midgar not shown or fully explored in the original game, and showing more of the city is fine, but to make it the length of its own game? It's unnecessary. My biggest fear is these big individual releases being padded with tedious and boring side content, and having an unnecessary and empty open world shoved into extended game time, as was the case with Final Fantasy XV. But besides pacing, another undeniable issue that comes with splitting the remake into parts is spread out releases. Let's be real here, Square is the worst gaming company on the planet when it comes to releasing games in a timely fashion. I don't think anyone out there can deny this, and I'm sure I don't need to even go into detail about their history with this. Hell, the game we're talking about today falls into this category perfectly already. Now let's be very generous here in Square's favor and say that the Final Fantasy VII Remake will only be split into 3 parts, and each part will release 2 years apart from each other. That would mean we'd be waiting until the year 2024, at the realistically earliest mind you, to experience the entire remake of Final Fantasy VII. And keep in mind that as of this recording, they've gone on record to say that not only do they still not know how many parts they're going to split the game into, but they cannot give a date as to when the project will be done. Now, I don't know about you, but the idea of waiting close to half a decade, once again being generous here, to experience one RPG does not rouse excitement within me. And now, let me address my final issue that stops me from being excited for the remake of Final Fantasy VII. The biggest issue of all that ties into my previous complaints, Tetsuya Nomura. I know, many of you love Tetsuya Nomura. A lot of you Kingdom Hearts fans worship the ground he walks on. He's without a doubt one of the most prolific game devs of the past couple decades, and his contributions to the series he's worked on is undeniable. And with that being said, Tetsuya Nomura is the primary reason that as of right now, I don't think I will enjoy the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Under his leadership, I don't see this project living up to its full potential. I know this is where I'm going to rub a lot of his passionate fans the wrong way, but from his terrible writing for the Kingdom Hearts series, to what a mess Advent Children was, to so many of his projects being behind any type of reasonable schedule, to him pitching the idea of turning Final Fantasy XV into a freaking musical. No, I'm not joking. Nothing Tetsuya Nomura has done outside of his role as a character designer invokes confidence for me that he can handle a project this major. And once again, I truly need to stress that I love the Final Fantasy series. It's near and dear to my heart like it is with so many of you. Getting a snippet of Final Fantasy VIII on a Pizza Hut demo disc back in 1999 changed the way I saw games forever, and to this day I enjoy almost every game in this vast series to varying degrees. But I had to be honest with myself and admit my worries for this project. And hey, I would love nothing more to be wrong. Nothing would make me happier than to play part 1 of the VII Remake and not only have my fears be dismissed, but be blown away by the game. But until then, I shall be cautiously optimistic. I'm happy that all of you are so excited for this game, and I hope it lives up to your expectations and more. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day.